Dan's Dispatch on Talk Radio.
Oh, so my wonderful great auntie Cecilia, the matriarch on my dad's side of the family, who I absolutely adored, died of COVID-19 in a Lancashire care home on Saturday, aged 87 years old. Now, severe dementia meant that my great auntie Celia, who I should tell you survived World War II before living a modest moral life as a family-focused Catholic, was blissfully unaware of the fact that she spent her final 3 months on Earth without seeing any family members in person. However, the indignity of the coronavirus restrictions banning her 2 sons and her beloved grandson from being in the room with her to hold her hand as she faced her final moments on Earth, thankfully, by the way, with some exemplary care workers by her side, is a trauma, an unrecoverable trauma actually for our entire family. A 7-year-old whose life I am closely involved in has started to wet the bed and is now in therapy because they are so terrified of COVID, having been forced to isolate at home for 2 weeks after one of their classmates tested positive, which is, in my opinion, an unimaginable cruelty for any fragile youngster. A close friend of mine who has battled mental health problems for some time had an OCD explosion thanks to lockdown and now finds it difficult to leave the house at all. One pal has seen their long dormant eating disorder come to the fore, while another has been forced to attend Alcoholics Anonymous as their lockdown drinking became uncontrollable. By the way, I don't expect any of these stories to shock you. Quite the opposite. It's highly likely you can share an equal number of tales of pain and heartache and psychological damage, stories of how the people you love have seen their lives blighted by lockdown. Or perhaps you are personally feeling the mental health consequences from 9 months of a global pandemic that has dominated our consciousness thanks to a public health campaign amplified by compliant broadcast media throughout the year. That's understandable too. Most of us are. After all, do not forget, our lives have been changed in ways we could not have imagined when this virus first reared its ugly head in Wuhan following a despicable cover-up by the Chinese Communist government. Personally, I veer from anger that we're in this situation at all, frustration that most of our leaders refuse to acknowledge the real cost of shutting down the country, and fear that it might be years before I see my mum, dad and sister in New Zealand again. With all of this in mind, I was taken aback to see the Mental Health Minister Nadine Dorries trumpet data this week suggesting there has been 0 increase in suicide figures since lockdown. So in a combative series of tweets, she said there had been an irresponsible narrative around mental health. Nadine Dorries, the Mental Health Minister, declared, "There is no tsunami, no cliff edge, and no explosion in suicide figures." That type of complacency is dangerous, especially given the London Ambulance Service last week released shocking figures showing call-outs to suicides at 37 a day compared to 22 a day last year. Look, I would love to be proven wrong about this, but I fear we are in the grip of the biggest mental health crisis any modern society has faced. Our leaders need to be acutely aware of that as they continue with their almost daily press conferences of gloom without even a glimmer of light at the end of a very long tunnel. Case in point this week was Boris Johnson and Jonathan Van Tam immediately trampling over the announcement of the first successful COVID-19 vaccine trial with more scary rhetoric about increasing infection rates and a dire second wave, even though much of the data in recent days has looked promising, including some breaking news actually of an R rate of 0.85 before we went into the second lockdown. Instead, we get Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford hinting that his citizens should not expect to return to their pre-pandemic lifestyles. We get the scaremonger-in-chief scheming Nicola Sturgeon appearing to portray COVID, which let's remember is highly survivable for the vast majority of folk under 85, as some sort of new bubonic plague being swept through Scotland, no doubt by dastardly Englishmen. There's increasing evidence, though, that we are growing wise to these unnecessary scare tactics. Despite national lockdowns, many folk are choosing to ignore the dire warnings and make their own sensible decisions about what's safe, using the knowledge that we have built up over these past 9 months. A growing trust deficit between our leaders and the public is potentially so damaging, especially with the great vaccination effort of 2021 just around the corner. So, this is my message to our leaders. Stop trying to scare us. You will come to regret the damage you are causing to the collective national psyche, some of which, by the way, could be irreversible. Trust us with all the data. Do not skew it as if you're dodgy propagandists attempting to make a bad situation look even worse. Allow us to balance the risk in our own lives, and please God, stop removing opportunities like saying goodbye to our loved ones, to our family members, to our mums, to our dads, to our grandparents, that carry less risk to our safety than travelling on a train to work, but that we will never mentally recover from missing out on. So that's what I want to know from you today. Have you suffered from any mental health issues as a result of lockdown? 0344 499 1000, that is my phone number. You can text me on 87222. Remember to start with remember to start with the word talk and include your name and where you're writing for. I'll repeat that just in case you got confused. The number is 87222. You've got to type talk at the start of the message and then let me know your name and where you're writing from. Plus, we've got a poll running on this at Talk Radio on Twitter.